Welcome to Sunday Night Live, the online television magazine programme for Christians across the UK, where this week love is in the air. It's Valentine's Day tomorrow, a time to cherish those you love. The couples who shared wedded bliss for nearly 50 years. The young couple with their own MOT on how their marriage is going. And what the world needs now is love, especially in Racial Justice Week. Hello again from me, Pam Rhodes, with a programme today that is just filled with love. Are you the romantic kind? Have you got the roses and the chocolates all organised? Or do you and your partner not do that sort of thing? Perhaps love is something that you long for in your everyday life, not just the love of a partner, but loving friendship, loyalty and genuine care too. Well, Graham Kendrick and his friends realise that it's not all about the grand gesture. After all, a little bit of love goes a long, long way.
A little bit of love goes a long, long way. A little love, a little love, a little bit of love, and I'm on my way. A little love, a little love, a long way, but we'll get there together. A long way, but we'll get there soon. Along the way, we can lean on each other. A little love goes a long, long way. A little love, a little love, a little bit of love, and the sun comes shining. A little love, a little love, a little bit of kindness and someone smiling. A little love, a little love, a long way, but we'll get there together. A long way, but we'll get there soon. Along the way, we can lean on each other. A little love goes a long, long way. A little love, a little love. Little drops of rain can trickle down into a puddle, then the puddles get together, making streams and make a river. The rivers fill the valleys with a roaring and a rushing, then the little drops of rain have made a wide, 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 wide ocean. A long way, but we'll get there together. A long way, but we'll get there soon. Along the way, we can lean on each other. A little love goes a long, long way. A long way, but we'll get there together. A long way, but we'll get there soon. Along the way, we can lean on each other. A little love goes a long, long way. A little love, a little love, a little love.
I am sure that Valentine's Day will be very special in the home of Rachel and John Redeemed. Now, they got married about 2.5 years ago in a wedding ceremony that reflected not just their love for one another, but their shared love for God. And they had such fun on that day. Just take a look at this.
I, John Hugh, take you, Rachel Mary, to be my wife.
I, Rachel Mary, take you, John Hugh, to be my husband, to have and to hold from this day forward.
For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health.
To love, cherish, and submit as the Church submits to Christ. Till death us do part, or Christ returns. According to God's holy law, in the presence of God, I make this vow.
Well, that was 2.5 years ago, and a lot has happened since then. I know we're still babies in marriage years terms, but we're keen to keep growing. And one way that we found to help us grow in our marriage is by doing a monthly marriage MOT.
Heading into marriage, a lot of the advice we received was that it was going to be difficult and lots of hard work, So we tried to take that seriously and basically just tried to read and listen to everything we could get our hands on to try and find out how other people had navigated marriage well.
Yeah, it wasn't great for our egos going in, but actually it then really helped our marriage, and I think it meant that we were able to deal with things as they came up more honestly and just take it that bit more seriously. And something that paved the way for us to do this marriage MOT was having done the HDB pre-marriage course as an engaged couple, because through that we got used to weekly sitting down to have a deep chat about something, whether that was our expectations growing up from family or how we navigated conflict, and so that was quite a journey.
I used to do a lot of rollerblading, and we heard this illustration that in our life and relationships, it's like we've got skates on and we're going up a hill. Just a gentle hill, like a 1% gradient. You wouldn't really notice it, but it's enough that unless you're actively moving forwards, so you're just standing still, you'll be rolling backwards. And if you let that go for a few weeks, you'll be way further back than you thought you were.
Yeah, you don't want to be way back there in the hedges, and basically that's what happened to us. We were a year into marriage, we weren't where we wanted to be, and so we wanted to make a change. The new year provided us with an opportunity to try something new, and we compiled a list of questions. We came up with the idea of a monthly check-in to see how that was going, and that then became the marriage MOT. To be honest, at the moment it's more of a life MOT, as there's just always so much going on, but giving us that space and that marital focus really helped.
We're due for our next one, so come with us.
So once a year we will go through all the questions and tackle them, but month by month we just pick a few and do our best to come up with a concrete list of action points at the end, so that we have something to review the next time we come back to do another marriage MOT. But this could be maybe memorising some scripture, or it could be maybe addressing an attitude. I know if I get tired and hangry, my words and tone might not be what I might want them to be, or maybe it's just that date night has been crowded out because we've just got too busy with work and we want to just prioritise having some more fun together.
It gives us a safe space to actively listen, or we can bring up anything that's not working without having to either bring it up in the heat of the moment or just let it get forgotten.
Right, we need some pastries. Hello, please may I have one of your chocolate and almond croissants and one of the swirls? Thank you.
We've got the coffee, we've got the pastries. Let's do it.
We used to do the marriage MOT sat in our living room with our phones out, calendars out, and it's in the diary aspirationally for once a month. I think we managed once every 2 months, and it made a huge difference. So we're keen to keep it going more regularly this year. To help ourselves with that, we decided to put some extra money aside in the budget to treat ourselves to a pastry and a hot drink, which just gives us a bit more of a motivation to prioritise marriage MOTing. Here's to keeping our marriage MOTs going for the rest of the year.
her work with the Pilgrims Friends Society, Louise Morse has got to know many couples who have shared a lot of happy married years together. And so she's been asking them to share their thoughts on why they feel their married partnership has worked so successfully. And she started by chatting to a couple that she's known a long time.
Janet and Peter are old friends of mine. Janet was a colleague and used to be a home manager. Before that, she'd been all her life a psychogeriatric nurse. She brought great understanding to people who were living with dementia. They've been married 49 years, last February the 3rd, just recently, in fact.
So it was a holiday romance. Peter lived in the northeast of England and I lived in South Yorkshire. But here we are, all these years later, still together, by God's grace.
And it's quite interesting to see God's hand in it as you look back, that where we met at Sidholm, the Methodist Guild holiday, it wasn't my first choice. I wanted to go to St Ives with my friend, but it was fully booked, and they put us to Sidmouth, and that's where I met Janet. So God's hand must have been behind it, right from the very beginning.
And if there were a key scripture that you would give to people just embarking on marriage now, what would it be?
I did read before I got married. I used to read a lot more than I did now, but I remember reading Matthew Henry's commentary on Ephesians, where it talks about wives and husbands. And this has been one of the foundations which I've tried to build my marriage on with Janet. And just let me quote it. This is Matthew Henry. The woman was made of a rib from the side of Adam, not made of his head to top him, not out of his feet to be trampled upon by him, but out of his side to be equal with him, under his arm to be protected by him, and near his heart to be loved by him. So I suppose the key verse is, certainly for husbands and for wives, is from Ephesians chapter 5, where it says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So that's been hopefully that's been the foundation on which I've tried to build marriage on. And as Janet says, it hasn't been easy at times, but nevertheless, here we are 49 years on and still talking to each other, which are amazing.
Actually, Peter put a little quote in his Bible when he wrote that comment of Matthew Henry. It's actually written in his Bible in Ephesians. But then he put a little quote straight after it of his own feelings. And I think he should just mention that.
Yeah. And it's God gave Eve to Adam to love as God gave Janet to me to love.
So that's what he'd put. And I thank God for Peter that Jesus has saved me at a young age, and I thank God for that. But I also thank God for Peter, that he's been my rock. I've never had any reason to doubt. And one of Peter's sayings throughout the whole of our marriage has been, it's you and me against the world. It's been a united front in all that we've tried to do and accomplish. And it's all by God's grace. We are so blessed to have worked and been given a continual working life. We've not had that struggle that many others have had. And we see God's hand in all of that. Peter, had a career in the police force, and when I met Peter, he was just newly joined in the police force at the beginning of his career, and I was still I think I would have been a third-year student nurse, still waiting to qualify. And through all our careers and wherever we've walked, whatever we've done, it's always been God guiding us and leading us.
When in Royd Court last week, I spoke to Alison and Jack Jenner. This coming August, they will have been married for 49 years. How has God helped you in these years of marriage?
I think we would say that God has been faithful to his promise to provide all our needs at every step of the journey and guiding us through each step of that journey. We've moved on 3 or 4 times in different places, and each time the Lord has guided us together to know we're in the Lord's will. We've been very confident that each step of the way has been his will, and we've had work to do for him.
If you could go back, what was it attracted you to him?
That's hard to say because he asked me to marry him 6 weeks after meeting him. So I'm still rather getting over the shock.
Yeah.
But he is a very practical man. He loves classical music. He loves the Lord, which is the most important. And that's as much as I could say at the time when he asked me to marry him.
And what prompted you to ask her to marry you after only 6 weeks?
I'd been married before. I lost my first wife through childbirth, the child as well. So I knew a little what marriage was and what I would require if I was going to carry on doing what the Lord wanted me to do. I didn't realise it was going to involve several church ministries, but I looked at this girl and said, she's for me. She was very sweet, calm and quiet, seemed to be in control. She's a trained midwife and a nursery nurse. She obviously loved children. She doesn't look too bad either.
And if you were to advise a couple who are just thinking of being married, what would you say is the most important thing for them to know?
To be prepared for a long haul, may be very joyful, maybe have many difficulties within that marriage, but just to be faithful by the strength of God's goodness in it all.
I would underline that and say that marriage is for life, and we're determined to live for the Lord Jesus Christ and serve him where he would lead us, and we needed each other. I couldn't have done the work that I've done without Alison helping me, and so we would say be prepared for, as I say, a long journey, as it were, and be prepared for shocks and surprises. It's not all roses, but if you have the Lord, that makes all the difference. We pray together morning and evening and read the scriptures together, and we look to the Lord to guide us together.
Earlier this week, I was in Royd Court, which is our extra care housing in Mirfield in Yorkshire. About 60 people living there. There are many couples there. And it was interesting to talk to them about St. Valentine's Day tomorrow. Many of them have been living a long time. But I thought about those who, like me, whose husband or wife has gone on before them. St. Valentine's Day is all about love. And I thought how love is stronger than death. Because even though my husband may be like yours, or your wife has gone before you, you know, because of Jesus Christ, is not the end. Because of the love of God for us in Jesus, we will be forever with our loved ones.
My song is love unknown, the Savior's love for me, love to the loveless shown that they might love me be. For who am I that in my place my Lord should take frail flesh and die? Song is love unbound, for love has conquered death, and love the victory won in this his parting breath. For with the cry that all is done, vain darkness fell before the sun. Father's praise. So shall I stand in glorious throng and add my praises to that song. So shall I stand in glorious throng and add my praises to that song.
Still to come on Sunday Night Live. On Racial Justice Sunday, churches together in Britain and Ireland consider the issues. Jonathan Veira, singer, a musician, and his wife Sue, to whom he owes his life. And the heartwarming love story of Cyrano de Bergerac in a new film out shortly. But first, bearing in mind that it's Valentine's Day tomorrow, back in 1904, when there was a huge renewal of faith right across the land of Wales, one very familiar hymn became known as the love song of the Welsh revival. And this is it. Here is love, vast as the ocean. There's nothing Krish Kandiah enjoys more than a visit to the cinema, and here he is, having watched a new film that retells one of the most touching love stories of all. There is a bit of a David and Goliath feel to the tale of Cyrano de Bergerac.
It's Krish Kandiah here, and I'll tell you about a brand new film coming to a cinema near you called Cyrano. Yes, the same Cyrano de Bergerac, but retold for our generation. I remember it from the 1990s, I think, when it was Gérard Depardieu playing the lead character. Well, this film is beautiful. I mean, every single set and scene seems to be like a Caravaggio painting. It's just exquisitely put together, as are the costumes and fantastic casting and some real sing-along on your journey home type music. So you're going to love that film for all those reasons. And it stars Peter Dinklage, who you might remember from such roles as Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones. And he plays the title character Cyrano. And in the movie, Cyrano thinks he is incapable of being loved because he's a shorter character than most of the other characters in the film. And that's a problem because Cyrano has fallen in love with the beautiful Roxanne, played by Hayley Bennett. You might remember her from such movies as Girl on a Train and The Magnificent Seven. And she's beautiful and erudite, and she's fallen head over heels herself for a guy called Christian, played by Calvin Harrison. And here's the rub. Christian is a beautiful man, but he doesn't have a beautiful brain or beautiful words, and he feels inadequate to court Roxanne. Meanwhile, Cyrano is a poet. He's incredible at writing poetry. And so Christian and Cyrano do a deal together. They decide Christian will be the pretty face and the beautiful body, and Cyrano will provide the beautiful words. And as a combination, they will be able to woo Roxanne. Now, I don't know about you, but told in today's world, that sounds awkward, doesn't it? We live in a world that's rightly sensitized to the exploitation of women and things like catfishing online, where people pretend to be somebody that they're not. So there are a whole bunch of really interesting issues, well worth a big discussion on your way home, particularly over issues about what constitutes genuine love. Is love about physical sexual attraction, or is love more than that? Should it have mattered that Cyrano's character was shorter than the average character, or can love overlook some of those boundaries that society puts around? And obviously, as Christians watching that film, we'd like to say, of course it does. We believe that love is a commitment that you make to someone. Love is a verb more than a feeling, as we used to say, and love is able to cross any barrier, because we believe in a God that loves the world. Every single person on this planet is loved by God. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, how abled, how black or white, how educated you are. God's love crosses those boundaries. And so in a film wrestling with the nature of love, what a fantastic opportunity for a rich and deep conversation about the Christian faith. I think you'll like Cyrano. I think it will prompt some really fun discussions within your family, but I think it will also just give you a great night out. Beautiful music, beautiful locations, and some really fine performances. I hope you enjoy it.
When we marry, we promise to love each other in sickness and in health, till death do us part. But few couples imagine themselves having to face the reality of those promises decades into their marriage. Jonathan Veira is a popular Christian entertainer and performer who has been inspiring audiences for many years, and throughout all that time his wife Sue has been right by his side. And she was by his side again on June the 9th last year, not only because she loves him, but because his life depended on it.
June the 9th.
June the 9th, Jonathan was very poorly and he had chronic kidney disease and he needed a new kidney. So June the 9th, I went into hospital with him and I gave him my left kidney.
That was very kind of you.
I know. Nothing else to do.
Nothing else to do on the day. So, and now she's got, I've got 3 and she's got 1. Doesn't seem fair somehow,
just
does
typical of our relationship, really.
But you mean imbalanced, exactly. And but there we are. No, it's been a journey and a half, and since June the 9th, and here we are now in February, and we're in Valentine's Day.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's not a straight line. As any of you, a lot of you out there, you've not been well, and you've had illnesses, and you know it doesn't just go right here. It is, and it's fine. There's a lot involved in it. Blood tests constantly. I rejected the kidney twice. Had to have major doses of steroids, 1,500 milligrams over 3 days. Trust me, you don't want me on steroids.
Jonathan on steroids, not a good idea.
Frightening thought, isn't it? And so it was a difficult time, very difficult. And people like to know where your faith is in this, because you're a man of faith, so you must have been solid, And I'll tell you, when you're presented with it, you don't just so I didn't. Some people do, and their faith is stronger than mine. But I was sustained by others. Actually, at times like that. It's a bit like Moses and Aaron. Aaron holds up the hands of Moses when he can no longer hold them up because he becomes weary. And I became weary. And I became weary. And I just remember one phone call when I was lying there. It was frightening time. And it was from a consultant friend, Sean, a consultant doctor, a friend of mine, and she just phoned and she said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "No, not great," and rejected, and I worried. And she just prayed for me that God would give me the strength to deal with whatever I had to deal with at that time, and it calmed me for that time, and it did. And
it was difficult, wasn't it? Because not only were you feeling rough, but actually there was a lot of guilt involved for you, and you struggled with that. I know you did.
Yeah, but you being under the knife, and it was very difficult. What about you?
Yes, I would agree with that. There were a lot of people out there that I know were praying for us and caring for us, thinking of us, and that made a huge difference to us and to our whole family. And I know that the time that I found most difficult was strangely not going into hospital. I did feel quite calm. The hardest time was coming out and leaving you behind, and actually then knowing that you'd got this rejection and being very frightened that it hadn't worked, and very frightened for you. And I can remember that all I could do was just ask that God would take in angels to you, because I couldn't go in. No one could go in because of the whole COVID situation, and you were on your own making decisions, and that was very difficult for you.
So just to conclude, I did get angels in the form of African nurses and a cleaner. One lovely African cleaner came in, and she said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Well, it's..." And she put a mop down and she prayed. And that was it. So, but we also thank you, the members of that community, our JV community online with the JV Life in the Steinway Room. So we thank you all for your prayers.
We do.
And by the way, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for the kidney.
Love you.
Love you lots. I'm going to sing a song for you. "A Love That Will Not Let Me Go." That's the one. That's the one that is the sustaining one. And
that's what it's all about, isn't it? That God's love didn't let us go.
Exactly. Right. God bless.
Take it away.
Take it away. Goodbye.
Oh Lord, that will not let me go. I rest my weary soul in Thee. I give Thee back the life I owe, that in Thine ocean depths flow may richer fuller be, may richer fuller be. Oh Lord, what follows all my way, I yield my flickering torch to Thee. My heart restores its borrowed ray, that in Thy sunshine's blaze this day may brighter, fairer be, may brighter, fairer be. Oh, perfect love, unchanging love, oh love that will not let me go. Perfect love, unchanging love, oh love that never lets me go. Oh cross that liftest up my head. I dare not ask to fly from thee. I lay in dust life's glory dead, and from the ground there blossoms red life that shall endless be, life that shall endless be. Oh, perfect love, unchanging love, oh, love that will not let me go. Oh, perfect love, unchanging love, oh, love that never lets me go. Lovely to be here with you, and God bless you all.
Today has been designated as Racial Justice Sunday, when Christians in churches all over the UK are being asked to consider the issues of racial injustice and how we can work together for justice for all who are equal before God. Here's Richard Reddy, who is the Director of Justice and Inclusion for Churches Together in Britain and Ireland.
Sunday the 13th of February is Racial Justice Sunday, and churches up and down Britain and Ireland will be marking an event that encourages us to remember, reflect and respond to issues linked to equality and justice. These are the 3 R's. Remember, as in remember the importance of racial justice. Reflect, as in reflecting on human diversity and thanking God for it. This is something that we should celebrate. And finally, respond. Respond by working to end injustice, racism and ignorance through prayer and action. Now, Racial Justice Sunday first began in 1995, and it was very much a response to the tragic racist murder of Black London teenager Stephen Lawrence in southeast London in April 1993. The apathy and the tardiness of police efforts to catch his killers was indicative, I would argue, of a collective response to address racism in Britain at the time. In 1999, the Macpherson report into the Metropolitan Police's investigation into Stephen's murder found it guilty of institutional racism. The tragic killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the United States in May 2020 once again gave the world an opportunity to focus its gaze on racism, especially within the context of Black Lives Matter. George Floyd's murder resonated with many people in Britain because, despite the various pieces of legislation being passed in this country, Britain still remained a place where the colour of a person's skin could limit their life chances. And I know that some in the church in Britain as well as Ireland saw this murder, this occasion, this event as a kairos moment, a time to stand up for justice, racial justice in particular, and stand against the bigotry and the prejudice and the ignorance that continues to blight lives. Now, as someone who has a real passion for justice, I welcomed this Christian interest in equality and racial justice. However, I believe that all Christians must be interested in justice issues because we worship a God who is a God of justice. And I know this because there are over 130 references to justice in the Bible. Many are in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible, but there are also a good number of references in the New Testament. And we have verses such as Micah 6 verse 8, which call on us as God's people to be justice makers, people who seek justice, people who do justice. And what's interesting about justice is that it's something that you do. It's an active verb or an action verb. You don't talk justice, you actually do it. So if that's the case, how should we be justice seekers? In Luke 4 verses 16 to 21, Jesus gave his manifesto in that Nazareth synagogue. His message was very much for those living in the places and the spaces where they resided. And I believe that, like charity, justice begins at home. And we should be fighting for justice in the places and the spaces we inhabit, the places where God has located us. This means tackling racism in church and in our workplace and anywhere we inhabit where it resides. Doing anything else, I believe, means that we're not doing justice to justice. Thank you very much.
And on Racial Justice Sunday, Richard Reddy has certainly given us plenty to think about. And we're going to end our programme this evening with a video that tells the story of Otis Moss Sr., who lived in the 40s in the rural state of Georgia. And it was in 1946 that he walked 18 miles to 3 different polling stations because he wanted to vote. And at each one of them, he was turned away. It is an emotive story told with the backdrop of his favourite spiritual hymn, I Want Jesus to Walk With Me. And I hope Jesus will be walking with you throughout the coming week and that you will be back to join me for Sunday Night Live next weekend. Until then, this is Pam Rhodes wishing you well and hoping that you'll take care of yourselves and each other till the next time. Bye-bye now.
Walk with me, Lord, walk with me. Walk with me, Lord, walk with me. While I'm on this tedious journey, I want Jesus to walk with me.
Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me, walk with me, walk with me, Lord, walk with me, walk with me. While I'm on this tedious journey, I want Jesus to walk with me. Be my friend. Be my friend, Lord, be my friend. While I'm on this tedious journey, I want Jesus to be my friend. While I'm on this tedious journey, I want Jesus to be my friend. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Walk with me. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. While I'm on this tedious journey, I want Jesus to walk with me. This tedious journey, walk with me, Lord. Won't you be my friend? Be my friend. Walk with me.
And if you've enjoyed Sunday Night Live, don't forget to press the subscribe and like buttons so that your device will offer you future editions each week, and recognise that this is a programme of interest to you and others.